Hello everyone. Today I'm doing something different and giving you guys a tutorial on how to do live2D. So for this one, we are going to be focusing entirely on the eyeball, specifically this one. But since I'm assuming this is the first thing that you're starting with, we're going to be going to the very beginning of literally everything in live2D. Very beginner friendly. So first, I like to start with the mesh, but also I think that we should go over the warp deformers. So hover is something specific for my model, so you can ignore it entirely basically. And then it goes into the torso Z, and then we go into head Z, then find head XY. Also, if you don't know, to make a warp deformer, you click this. And we're going to ignore all this stuff because I have yet to make a warp deformer to put it in. I'm going to scroll down and we find the eyes, which are all the way down here. They're kind of like folders and you organize them. At least that's how I see it at first, and then I give them a purpose later. So for this one, I put all of the IR bits into its own warp deformer to just ignore it because we're not going to be doing anything with IR until later. And then we go on to IL, which is the one that we work on. IL and then IXY to IL closed to IL smile. It goes into outer eye XY, the top lashes to tiny top lash, and then you can see that it goes into the individual pieces. This LHL one is for highlight, which you can't see it, so I will remove the side hair. Now she's bald. Highlight 2, top lash, the lower lash, tiny lower lashes, which go into the parts themselves. I highlight, which is just this tiny one right here. And then the other eye parts, which are, this one was going to be used, but I think I'll delete it. The tear duct, the eye line, which is this part right here. It's in between the eye bag and the eye white, the eyeshadow, and then we go on to eye white close for closing. And I also made it be attached to the eye smile as well. Later on I do, because I forget about it, and I'll get into that later. The eye angle XY, which is something we won't work on till later. And then we have inner eye XY to go left, right, up, down. Iris 1, highlights XY, highlight 1, 2, and then go into the highlight itself. Pupil XY, pupil 1. Then we go into the parts itself, and then iris 2 for the big circles. And these parts are also a part of the eye movement, so you will be wanting to make their own warp deformers as well. I have scales under her eyes, and for the brows, they have their own parts as well. The brow R is on its own because we will just be copying and pasting this over to this, flipping it around, but we will do that again in a later video. Brows IXY, so that when I move the eye, when I'm looking someplace, the eyebrow moves along with it. It's not something that you have to do, but it does add just a little pop to it, you know? And since these are for brow mover in general, we do not need to worry about them for now, but you do want to put in brows Y and brow form for later. And then I have a brow blink for when we blink and it goes down. And then since my VTuber has scales, I also want to move them along with the eye. So we have scales XY and then scales blink. So you can see that they move just a little bit, not too much because they're stiff. And then to blink, they also move a little bit. Okay, now that we've gone over the warp deformers, I want to go over the meshing of the parts. When it comes to meshing, I do like to make sure that if there's like a line, I want to put a line of mesh, like dots. I'm going to refer to them as dots. I don't actually know what they're called. Joints, maybe, something like that. But when it comes to something more detailed, you want to add more dots. If part of it moves, you want to add a dot. You can see this thing right here. That part is not a feature with the mesh. You get it from right here, deform path edit, and then you just pop, 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 pop the dots along where you want them. You will most likely be using it for this part. Also, you want to make sure that you have one at the end of the drawing, each end, because if it's not, you might end up moving. It might end up moving in a way that you don't want it to move. These kind of like stabilize the art as well. I don't really have a good way of explaining it, but just make sure that you cover all of the art when you're using these. The mesh looks like this. You can see I put these dots along the highlight line of the eye, but you can add more if you want, especially since the eyes are, again, a very important part of the VTuber. You want them to be detailed and you want them to look nice. I did the same thing for the lower lash as I did for the top lash. Some parts in live2D you do not have to touch a mesh of, like right here. This is the default. What you get, you have to either auto make a preset standard and it'll do it for you. Do little, you can do heavy, and you can change as much as you want right here under here and just play around with it. But I don't need to do that for my highlights right here, so I just left it as is. When it comes to the iris or the pupil or circles in general, I like to use a tool like this, and you can see that it does two sides. Or you can change it to 3, or you can just use 1. It's very helpful if you want to have even spacing among your dots, and you can like change it. You can add these joints to it, make it curve exactly how you want to. You can, this is better displayed by, like, let's say 2. You can, if you go farther in repeated density, you get like less of the joints. If you go like this, you get more. So less on here. And then mesh width. You can change the size of it as well. I use these constantly, like all the time, especially the 1, because I want to make sure that my dots are spaced out okay. But you don't have to. You can just guess. It's no big deal. Erase those. So that's what I did for here. I used this and did 2 number of vertices, and I just went around, and then I put 1 in the middle and make sure that they all connect to that one. And you can see that it's the same for each of these, except for this one, because it's in the back and it's not really as important. I'm not moving it much either. So there's that. I applied the same technique that I previously talked about to the scales and then adjusted where those dots were. But I can give you an example of what needs to be complex. There's a lot going on here. A lot of different colors. There's shines as well within the eyeshadow. And this line right here, I don't want it to get too bendy. I want to make sure that it's straight. And there are plenty of other examples, like with the legs, the arms, the eyebrow just uses the same technique as the eyelashes, the the eyelids, excuse me. There's a lot of parts and you have to name them and make sure that they have underscores as well. If you were looking at this before you have finished your VTuber, make sure that you name all of your parts and that you don't have spaces, you have underscores instead of spaces. Going back to the meshes, you probably want to know which one of these connects to your parameters and how big those parameters are. So for eye open, and it does help if you check off snap to rounded number. And then my highest point is 1.2, default is 1. I have a point at 0.8 and then one at 0.6, but I think I've only used it twice for some of the parts because when I was moving down from 0.8 to 0, there were some things that were going a little wonky, so I needed that extra 0.6. Just IL, I used it as like a folder, so I didn't touch it. You don't use the warp deformers, you mostly just use these when it comes to eye open and eye smile, and then anything else that you make it move for, you put it in a warp deformer. When I say outer eye XY, what I mean is the lashes and nothing on the inside. So I've already done all of the rigging, but I want you to avoid looking at the inner eye and just look at the outer eye and see how much I made this part move to move with the eye when it moves left, the eyeball when it moves left, and looks right. And then I have IY in the same warp deformer. Moves just a little bit, not too much. Tiny top lash was definitely maneuvered because of these. The deform path edit again. And a lot of the time, people will flip this over when it comes to going close, but I decided not to do that. Like this. So you literally flip it, but I was against that because it would not look as nicely for my model. I do want to show you some of my keyboard shortcuts to make things easier for you. So you find in file keyboard shortcuts, go to here, go to edit. I have made my undo button just U, and then redo is R. Hide selected state means that it can look like this instead of this, like showing all these things. Just click H and then it's gone so that I can see things more cleanly. And the next one is in modeling. Reset to default values is V, and what that does is if I have this on anything other than default and I click V, it goes to its default form. Oh, the eye smile also you want its default to be at 0 and the smile part to be at 1. Lower lashes and a warp deformer. Also just more lash physics. There's also an option in modeling, temporary deform tool, temporary path deformation to do the same thing as this, but temporary. It is mostly helpful if you don't want it in the way when you're done using it after you've made the movement that you want, and then you can go into here and click on the little dots because there's a dot right here, but I want to click on it, but this dot is in the way. The big red dot is in my way of clicking this one. That's what the temporary path deformation tool is useful for. I also do apologize if it was a bit hard to see. I have zoomed in a bit so that you can probably see what I'm trying to explain now. I hope that this is a bit better on the eyes so that you don't have to squint and zoom in anymore. My bad. When you have art in, let's say, Clip Studio set at a certain opacity, the opacity will stay the same when it moves over to live2D. So you can make it 100%, you can get rid of it, or keep it to what it was at originally. So you see the eyeball, right? Ooh, you can see that it also isn't moving outside of this white part. And that's because all of these white parts are clipped to white L, which is, this part. So you take this part, you copy the ID, not the name, the ID, and then you paste and click enter. Remember to click enter so that the clipping works. And these parts just don't leave this vicinity. This is how it is with eye wide. Then we start to close it, close it, close it, and then you see that it basically just gets smushed. But you don't want to smush it too much. You want to make sure that it's like open, because here, you can get like, it has to unfold and move back to where it was at 0.8. So it doesn't want to look like it's been smushed when the eye is going down. You need it to look as natural as possible. Well, you don't need it to, but it's definitely something that would be preferred by most riggers, most people who are commissioning. The mesh is also aligned with the shadow of the eye. You can see as I go down, that part also goes down. When I have it wide, the shadow goes up. And for eye white close, this is mostly where I did the eye smile, because I should have remembered that I was doing it here and not on here. So I screwed up a bunch, and you will see that in the speed rig, which is just atrocious. Ah. And for something like this that I needed it to be looking normal, looking okay, I changed the warp divisions, the Bezier divisions, and increase them. And the more that you increase them, when you are done with the VTuber, it might make it laggy. So only use them if you know you have a good PC, and if you know that the person who's commissioning you has a good PC. And there's a better way to give it a 3D effect, but with my specific eye, I don't think I was capable of doing it. But you can see this part and how it's moving back, kind of. Like it gets closer to this pupil. I have like two. I didn't know what else to call them, because this isn't a highlight. This is a part of the eye. Moves closer to the back. Just made sure that you can still see the pupil, because if I moved it too far down and you couldn't see where I was looking, that would be a problem. Iris is for physics. Move it out, move it in. You can go really crazy with this, and you can move it out a lot more than I did. I wasn't interested in making the physics too crazy, because my model is just not that type of model. Okay, Iris 2 for more physics. I excluded the pupil parts. It's more squeeze, more out, so that the physics would not affect the pupil parts. And then I applied the same kind of logic to the highlights. That the iris went through. So it does something similar. Okay. Now that you've seen how all of these parts move, we're going to go into the speed rig, And you can see exactly start to finish how I did it. So most people will start with the top lash, bringing it up, bringing it down to a closed form. You don't want it too flat, but you also don't want it too curvy when it goes down. There's also a shadow part of my top lash that I moved according to if it was going up. I changed the shadow to more. If it was going down, I changed the shadow to less because there's more light shining on the eye. I guess it just depends on where you think the sun is shining. I did change the meshing at some parts because I needed more detailed look to it. I needed to change it in a way that it was just not working. Like if it starts to get blurry when I move it, I'm like, okay, this might need more meshing. I made sure that the eye bag of the eye was big and small depending on whether or not my eye was open or closed, because that part of the skin will stretch out when you stretch out your eye. I think the lower lashes were probably, minus the eye whites, it was definitely one of the harder parts. I also have an inner eye shadow type of thing. It's a stylized choice that I haven't done for any art I've done before, but I really like how it turned out. You can see me adding more meshing to the eyeshadow as well because I realized how much I would need to move it and how badly it was moving when I didn't have the mesh. A lot of the time when you do the eye close, the eye white will get very tangled and messy and annoying, so you kind of have to keep it organized as much as you can. Try not to make sure that the dots overlap with each other as well. The eyebrow, I don't move it too much, and you don't want to move it too much. I also had to move it over the eyeshadow as well, which you can do that if something is in a position where you're like, I don't like if that thing is over and that thing is under, yada yada yada. You can change where it is above in the folders. Here I can see that I'm starting to work on the eye smile, which is where things went very wrong for me. I also, you can see that the highlight there, the bigger one, is not clipped to the eye white. I thought I wanted to keep it that way, but I'm like, it's just looking weird whenever I'm closing my eye. Did you see how crazy that looked? The eye smile was a pain in the butt because I forgot that I connected it to a warp deformer and I wasn't going to work on it as the mesh itself. So here I am going into the blend shape mode because the eye smile is a blend shape. You can see that it's a square and not a circle in the parameters form. So yeah, I tried. I'm not going to tell you much about blend shapes now because you don't need to know about them, but they are very helpful if something is moving in a way that you don't want it to move when you're moving another parameter that it's connected to. It's it's difficult. Live2D is so hard. And there's so many things that I learn about it just as I'm doing it, just as I'm playing with it. And you can see that I just struggle and struggle and struggle and I'm like, "Man, I really didn't do this right, and I don't know what's wrong." I know what's wrong now. So don't do what I did. You you don't have to put eye smile into a warp deformer, but that's what I was gonna do. So try to remember which one you're doing for eye smile. Are you putting it into a warp deformer? Or are you just doing it on your own? Not on your own. I mean, on its own. Yeah. So my eye smile is in a warp deformer, not the eye white itself. And when I figure that out, I'm like, oh, all that was a long hour. That was a very long hour. I think it was more than an hour actually. I was just struggling and I was about to break my art tablet. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Yeah, because I do the live2D on my art tablet because it works as a third monitor for me. It's just easier to place all of the meshing and move some things with my pencil. So if you have one, I recommend it. So yeah, I think, yeah, this is where I figured out what I was actually trying to do. I forgot where I was placing everything. And so iSmile is back in business, baby. There are many ways that you can make iSmile look. You don't have to follow how I did it. You can do exactly how you want to do it. There are plenty of references on Pinterest of just, you know, an anime girl just smiling, and I would take that into account for whatever you want to do. Here I start working on the eye, inner eye physics, trying to figure out how to make it look as 3D as I can with art that was not meant to make it 3D. I don't know how to describe it, but a lot of other artists add so much stuff to their eyes, so many highlights, so many reflections, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not a fan of my own art, and if I did that, I'll probably do it in the future, but it's just not something that I would want for my model. Right here is where I was doing the outer eye to work with. If I look up, the eyelashes go up, and left right they go left right. Same with the eyebrow and the scales that I have under my eyes as well, because those are on the cheeks, and the cheeks move when your eyes move, not exactly moving like how vtuber would move, because we just take some creative liberties with that, but that's just how things like to be done. It's like, I don't want to say it's like popular to do that, it's just standard. Okay, now we're going to be working on the physics settings of the video. So you might be wondering, how is this happening? How is there a blink and I'm not doing anything? Well, I'm going to exit out of that, and we go clicking these three lines, we go down to settings for eye blinking and lip sync. So I don't use the original parameters, but do not delete them. So we have the original parameters, and then I make my own of them to make augmented physics. You want to check that off, click OK, and then we click modeling. We go down to physics settings, it leads to here. And then we have, you should have your eye blink, but I also have my own eye open physics as well. Physics is a touchy subject, I won't lie. What you put into input and what you put into output is very important. I put my own movement into the output, but you don't want to do that. You want to put in what they have here and what I made here. So that when it blinks, it can blink. If you switch them around, it's not going to work. I have the effectiveness at 100, the type at position X. I also changed these to what it says for my thing in the eye open, which is 0 to maximum 1.2. It's not really much you have to do with eye open. You don't really have to do anything with it at all. So when we go to the physics of making things move, the input is now what I have for eye open, not what they have for eye open, because I've already made my own type of physics and I want it to be applied to this eye open, my eye open, if that makes sense. The effectiveness of eye open is at 80, while X and Y movement is set at 10 10. So what this does for the iris is when I blink, it moves. The output is iris 1, iris 2, and the pupil. You can kind of see it bounce, but not that much because I'm not crazy about making it move like that. But other VTubers are. And if you want to do that, you have this shaking at a... So for my eye parameters, you saw that I didn't move it that much, and that'll be kind of the version of what you have in the physics. But if you went crazy, and if you want more crazy and more eye physics, you just increase the crap out of these. Also, don't forget the effectiveness to be at 100, 100, 100 here. If you want it to fully be working, but if you don't want it to be, you can always just drag it down, drag it up, however you want. Scale, you can click increase or decrease. You can adjust these manually as well. I find it very difficult to teach myself how to do physics and explain physics to others because it's not going to be the same for everybody. But these are just examples. These are just, I don't even know if they're good examples, so I very much do apologize for that. Now we have lashes eye open, so the lashes will move a little bit when I blink, hopefully. Yeah, you can see that they move when I look right and left. Are they not moving when I'm blinking? Hold the phone. Are these the wrong ones? Okay, I have fixed it officially. None of that other crap. But I haven't changed anything. I just know that it works now and that everything is moving. Everything is moving just fine. The scale is the only thing that I changed to make sure that I can see that it's moving better. But we're gonna change the shaking. We're definitely gonna change that. We're gonna tone it down. Let's try 80. I don't think that's enough, honestly. Makes it look like it doesn't exist. So it's all in one physics group. See, when it does blink, it like folds, and I don't want that. I need like a smoother transition.
I was kind of happy that the duration has changed a bit. Also, I think I need to scale this down to, let's try 1.5. So we're moving. Maybe want the duration up. I think this second shake needs to chill out just a little bit. Yep, that was the issue. Increase the first shake. Nice, okay. Now that was a bit much. I'm gonna tone down eye open and increase eye XY.
Okay. So the next thing that I am going to keep in mind for next time is that even though I want the eyelashes to shake when it opens and goes XY, I need to make additional highlight physics for that. Not highlight, excuse me, lash physics, excuse me. So when I blink, it's different. When I move left and right, the eyelashes have different physics. I don't want to have to put them in the same physics group. That's going to be annoying. So keep that in mind for next time. And if you've already done it, I'm sorry. So I need to add more parameters. 2 additional ones. It's fine. And it's basically just doing the same thing that you did for lash physics and just copy and paste. Literally the exact same thing. I would not change anything. So thank you all for watching. I want to let you know that me teaching and going in depth about this, even though I feel like I kind of did at the same time, will be for memberships, which is going to be individual helps on my Discord. If you want it, it's there. And I will be working on the mouth next as well. And thank you all for watching. I think I did a good job at my first tutorial. I'm not sure, but let me know. Please tell me if there's any additional things that you would like me to talk about, because then I'll just add that to membership videos. Good luck on your rigging, everyone. Goodbye.